This is Emily Rasmussen, Associate Editor with The Edge.
Blake Pinto, Multimedia Editor with The Edge.
And we're here with Nancy.
With Nancy Allsweed from Better Housing for Long Beach, a grassroots, multi-planed coalition that is trying to work against the continued implementation of the PRIP ordinance.
So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what the PRIP is?
The PRIP ordinance stands for Proactive Rental Housing Inspection Program, and it came into effect about a year ago. It was accepted by all of the communities because it was supposed to be a piece of legislation that would go after slumlords, and none of us are in favor of slumlords. But as the inspections started, they went way beyond anything that had to do with slumlords. They were giving citations for people who had cosmetic damages on countertops and bathtubs. They were giving citations to people that had cracked grout and caulking, even though there wasn't a leak nearby or anything. They were giving citations to people that had peeling paint under the eaves of their roof that was very small, and those people then had to repaint their entire buildings, a very costly endeavor. So these are just a few of the infractions that happened. Another one of the infractions that was particularly egregious was there's been several owners that this has happened to. When the inspectors came, they cited them for not pulling permits on replacing doors, hot water heaters, or windows. Well, these owners all hadn't replaced any of those things. Those are the items that had been there when they bought the building. Some 4 years ago, some 6 years ago, some 10 years ago. And it seems pretty difficult to hold a property owner accountable for something that a previous property owner did. But they've had to pull permits, pay fees, make the situation right. And the big problem with this isn't about making the situation right. The big problem about this is the citations. And when you have a tremendous number of citations, and you can get them very quickly with those tiny little inspection choices, when you have a lot of citations, then you are subject to the penalties of PRIP. And the penalties of PRIP are $1,000 a day per citation and 6 months in jail for a misdemeanor. Now, hopefully, most of our good landlords, the minute they get the citations, are going to run out and fix things. But sometimes finances aren't such that they can just drop everything and do it. So we hope that the owners will fix things as quickly as they can. But meanwhile, we think there should be some opportunities for them without going to jail.
Okay, so they conduct these inspections. I guess from their point of view, this is to protect, again, the renter from a slumlord. But from your point of view, the inspections can come, or they can add up to where it ends up affecting the renter.
It affects the renter to begin with, because the inspectors show up and try and bully their way into the renter's unit. I'm here from the city. I've come to inspect your property. And I can't tell you the number of renters we've talked to who, one, are either afraid because they're from the city or they don't understand what's going on. So it is very definitely a violation of Fourth Amendment rights guaranteed under the Constitution. So I don't know how they're going to get around that in the future, but it's a big deal to the renters to have somebody coming into their place, checking their cupboards, looking in their underwear drawer, and woe be unto you if you have a pet and the pet gets out because the inspector let him out, as happened in Los Angeles, and a family friend dog was killed by a car. You can't put dollar value on that kind of thing. The the importance to the renter cannot be minimized in this. And as far as the landlord is concerned, let me explain something to you. We have something in California called the California Civil Code. And under the California Civil Code, section 1942.5, we have a listing of habitability standards for protection against slumlords in the state of California. I really don't understand why we need this ordinance if we already have protections under the habitability standards. And those habitability standards are set forth for both rental owners and for renters. So it's all right there in the California Civil Code. And I find it outrageous that they are not putting that California Civil Code in their inspection ordinance if really all they want to do is go after slumlords. They should make it very fair from the get-go that if you violate these things, you're a slumlord. And guess what? Then you do deserve to go to jail. Guess what? Then you do deserve a quick path to the Board of Examiners, Appeals, and Condemnations, which has been in this city for years and years.
But so how do you know if somebody's violated that code? Would you need inspectors still?
We've always had inspectors, and the inspectors have been primarily complaint-driven. And we have had fire inspectors, we have had code enforcement inspectors, and basically what has happened is they've taken all the inspectors, regardless of their training, regardless of their background, lumped them into a new department and attached a monetary goal to it. By the time you pay for a business license, by the time you pay your registration fee, by the time you pay the ordinance fees, most small owners are looking at least $230 per building, and the bigger buildings are looking at more than that. And just because a building is bigger doesn't mean it's easier to deal with, because some of them are not real new either, but yes.
Okay.
And I have to say that when I was CEO at the Apartment Association, we never had a problem dealing with Jeff Benedict or Craig Wong or any of the inspectors that the city had. So I really don't understand what the momentum was to bring something like this into town, to a community that is very well maintained.
Okay. In the last 5 weeks through this organization, and we've kind of done some of our own research as well, is there a feeling that certain people are being targeted by the inspections?
I think so.
While other people are being
Yes, I think
let
so.
off?
I think that I'm going to say this, and if we need to cut it, we'll cut it. But I don't think that folks understand that when you stand up, even in a nice city like Long Beach, you get targeted. And politically, we have one member of our action team who has had their building graffitied 6 times since this started.
Within the last 6 weeks?
It's been in the last 4 weeks. We have another member of our committee who, amazingly enough, was turned in to the Department of Real Estate for an audit. Well, she hasn't had one in 30 years, and she passed with flying colors, but this is just annoyance after annoyance after annoyance, and I find it reprehensible. If we have to cut it, guys, we'll cut it.
All right.
Okay.
And then, so I guess this is another thing, because as a renter, I mean, I used to rent, and when you hear rent control, it always sounds good.
It does
because it
sound
feels
good.
like my rent's going to be capped, and I'll never have to pay anything more.
Right.
So can you explain to me?
Yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened in the city of Santa Monica.
Okay.
Excuse me. When the city of Santa Monica put rent control in, within the first 2 years, there was a 35% decrease of the Hispanic population of Santa Monica. Why was this? Well, no offense to all you guys that are in the media, but there were a bunch of directors, producers, writers, reporters that came in and said, aha, we're going to get low rent. And when the owner said, well, because the rent's so low, I can't paint and I can't put new carpeting in, they all said, hey, that doesn't matter to me. I've got plenty of money and I'll just fix it up myself. Guess what the next step a lot of those people did? They sublet for more money than the original owner was charging the original renter who got run out of town by the folks from Medialand. So that's one thing that happens. A second thing that happens is that there are continual fees and fines that are put on the landlord, and the landlord can't continue to pay it. When the rent, it's like anything. When the product price is capped, how do you have money to pay other things that go along with it? You don't. You don't. And that's what occurs in rent control. Another thing that happens with rent control is the homeless situation. I don't know if you want to pick that up from what I said to her. I can repeat it if you want.
46,000 in Los Angeles?
Yeah, 46,000 homeless people in the city of Los Angeles, the largest homeless population that exists. Let me go through the regressive road to rent control, because it isn't a situation where all of a sudden somebody decides they're going to have rent control. It's an evolution. And what happens is that first step is the requirement to register your units. Why do they want you to register your units? Because they want to tax you.
And real quick, so would you say that, in your opinion, or as we're talking, that rent control would actually limit affordable housing?
Absolutely it does, and I'm going to tell you how.
Okay.
The bottom line is that when you have the registration of units and the owner then has to pay fees, okay, then the next step is inspection ordinances. And when the inspection ordinances have additional fees, as PRIP does, then you're adding another layer of expense to the owner. When the inspections become overreaching, like we were talking about with the cosmetic damages, et cetera, then the bills for the landlord can become very high. When the bills for the landlord become high and they can't continue to make the corrections that need to be made, then something comes into play called REAP. REAP is Rent Escrow Account Program.
And this program does not exist currently in Long
It
Beach.
it exists in Los Angeles, and it is the fourth step in the regressive road to rent control. And if you want chapter and verse on this.
But Long Beach owners aren't currently subject to
No.
REAP.
Not
correct?
yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Okay. And when REAP comes into play, then the tenant's rent doesn't go to the landlord. It goes to the city. And then the landlord can't do anything to fix problems. The landlord loses the building. Before he or she have lost the building, what happens is the good tenants move out because the building becomes infiltrated with drug dealers and all kinds of things like that. The good tenants move out, more bad tenants move in, then the landlord has to give it up because they can't even handle it. And when that happens, then very honestly, you will find big developers coming in, buying these buildings in parcels, like 3 or 4 at a time, and then putting up a great new building like the current in Long Beach, which is a lovely building. I don't take anything away from it. In fact, the building that was there before I had looked at to be the apartment association headquarters. But once that happens, then you're looking at $3,000 a month for a 500 square foot studio. That's exactly what you've got. So where is there affordability in that?
What, in your opinion, because I think this is something that everybody kind of sways on, what is affordable housing? Do you have a number for that?
Well, I think it depends on how many people you have, what size apartment you want. It's a variable. You know, I think if we can find housing that is, I think that the economists say between 35 and 50%. I personally think 50% is high
Income?
of your income. But if you can find something in the 35, probably to 45% of your income, that's probably what's considered affordable. But you know as well as I do that affordable is whatever is affordable to the person that's looking.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so you mentioned some of these inspections in Los Angeles, such as looking through underwear drawers and looking through cupboards. Was that in Los Angeles or in Long Beach?
No, well, I don't know if they've done it in Long Beach yet.
Okay.
We happen to we have video of it in LA.
Okay.
We did have that in Long Beach.
7th Street in Long Beach.
Okay.
Vicky's?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I will say, if you haven't seen the video, that in Los Angeles they actually go through with a deal that looks like a drill into the lock and open up the doors to gain entrance. They're not doing that in Long Beach yet.
Right. So with these inspections, how interconnected are they with these other programs? Is it separate? Does the city choose how to do that type of policy for breaking through the locks, or is that connected with REAP or one of those other programs?
The city decides how to implement. But this is a pattern that has occurred all across the country. Okay? And there is a textbook that's put out by, I think it's Citizens United out of San Francisco, very, very well funded, that it's a 36-page booklet that tells you exactly what I'm telling you. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this if you want to bring rent control to a community.
What about, so this is Better Housing Long Beach has been around 5-6 weeks?
5-6 weeks.
Okay. What is the biggest hurdle going forward?
The biggest hurdle, I think that we're doing a really good job reaching out to the housing providers. I think we need to reach out a little bit more to the renters, and I think that we will be doing that. We're having a lot of tenants come and speak at City Council about what their landlord relationship really is. I'm not sure whether we're going to do that this week, but we've done it the last couple weeks. I think the next thing is to get people that are elected officials to understand that this is an evolution. You know, when somebody calls the mayor and the mayor says, no, we're not having rent control, of course we're not having rent control. But we are having inspections. There are council members that are talking about just cause eviction. You know, the road is there. It's happening. And if we don't stop it, that's exactly what we're going to find in Long Beach is rent control. And I think it's really awful because Long Beach, I've been around Long Beach a long time, and it seems like every time Long Beach almost gets to being the great city potential that it has, something happens. And I don't want that something to be rent control.
Like Blake mentioned, to renters, sometimes things like rent control or just cause eviction can seem, you know, like a good thing. Do you think that there's a middle ground for those?
No, I don't.
No?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. Let me explain to you what just cause eviction is. Okay, let's suppose you live in an apartment building, okay? And Blake is a drug dealer, and he lives 2 doors down from you. And you have 3 little kids. You call your owner and you say, you've got to do something about getting Blake out of here because I can tell by the trafficking what's going on here, and you've got to get him out. Under just cause eviction, the landlord says, sorry, can't do it.
Why?
Because just cause evictions actually announces those things that you can be evicted for, and they are very, very minimal. Very, very minimal. And the other thing that happens with just cause evictions, you can't get out hoarders. You can't get out pedophiles who have joined a partner after the screening process has occurred. You can't get out a lot of different kinds of criminals, okay? Because the only way to get rid of those is to ask you to go to court and testify against Blake. And let me tell you, in this day and age, you're not going to take time off from work and find sitters for your 3 kids so that you can go down to court, testify against a criminal who's probably going to kill you on the way home. That is why just cause eviction is so bad, is what it does to the good tenants.
I have one last question. Feel free to cut this one, Joni, but I'd like to ask this, and I think it's something that should be asked. As far as Better Housing Long Beach, the demographic, I feel like if you look in that meeting today, it's not necessarily representative of Long Beach. What are you doing to solve
Okay,
that issue?
let me answer
Go
that
for
question. It's Labor Day weekend.
Okay, all right.
We had
Yeah, I've had that answer. I had her
no,
answer that as well. But
we actually decided that we were going to go ahead and have the meeting today, even though we'd have a smaller turnout, because we wanted to keep the consistency going.
Okay.
We've got budget issues coming up for the Amy Bodek's commission Tuesday night, and then the following Tuesday night, and it's very, very important that we keep the message going, and a lot of what we're doing will end up going out on the internet to people, the ones that weren't here. I think that if you had been to some of the others, we've had up to as many as 175 here, and we very definitely have a lot of Hispanics, definitely have a lot of Cambodians. The guys, there were 2-3 guys' stories that were told last week that broke my heart. They're actually going out of business after 9 years in Long Beach because of tax increases that the city council's put on them. And one of them had a story that I couldn't believe. He had a small unit. The city came in and told them to turn it into a garage. So he said, oh, all right, if it, I'll turn it into a small garage. He did it. Then they came back and said, no, we need more housing. Turn it back into a rental unit. This has all happened this year. And it's like, I feel so sorry for the guy, So we have a lot of Cambodian strength. We have a lot of African American strength.
so
And
if somebody were to say that this is a white middle class issue,
it is not.
that'd be wrong.
It is not. It is not. The other issue is that we do have a very strong veterans component, and we do have disabled people besides just me. We have an owner who was at our last meeting, African American guy. He's just really been through the mill. And, people don't think that folks that are in wheelchairs own property, but guess what? We do.
Do you personally own property?
Yes.
Can I ask how much?
Not a lot.
Okay. And is it in Long Beach?
No.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? Okay, I think we're good. Did you want to
Thank
ask
you.
us any questions?
No, I'm good.
Survived. Thank you very
No,
much.
I knew
Yeah,
I'd
thank
survive.
you.
I've been
Thank you.
surviving for years on interviews. Thank you so very, very much.
You guys were great.
I appreciate it.